Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're watching live, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the alert bell so you know every single time we go live here on the CoinGeek YouTube. And if you're watching us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever else, you can also like and you can also share. But I don't think you can directly subscribe. But please let people know, hey, we're live and we are going to have a hot troll box. So if you want to talk to our guest today, Mr. Bernhard Müller from Centi, he's going to be our guest today. So prepare your questions based on actually, he's an old school Bitcoin guy too. So you can take some general like old school Bitcoin stuff. You can ask him about that, but we're going to be focusing on the company Centi. Talk a little bit about the stablecoin that they have helped issue officially, and some other goodies out there. So prepare yourselves. It is going to be a good time. We are like 6 weeks out from the London Blockchain conference. I always screw this up. It's conference or convention. They're synonyms. It's conference. So we're like 6 weeks out from the London Blockchain Conference. So if you haven't signed up, check out londonblockchain.net. I would love to meet you. So come visit us. There's going to be 3 days of opportunity to be covering the world of what's going on in the blockchain space. Obviously, going to have a little bit of a BSV slant, but it is an open blockchain convention. And I'm also trying to put people together from other blockchains so that we can talk about what they do versus what we do and have a little discussion, have a little meeting of the minds. That's the goal here. So end of May and the first 2 days of June, we will be doing the London Blockchain Conference. And I'm looking forward to it. You know what? Let's not spend too much time chattering the way that I chatter. Alex Moon is at the helm today. Good to have him back from his book tour. 10 days in Thai prison or something like that, I think is his autobiography now out, but he's back from his little book tour, and we're excited to have him back. So if we could play the ad, and we'll be back with Bernhard Müller. Welcome.
Thank you, Kurt.
How are you doing, Bernhard?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. How about yourself?
I am quite well. Actually, I've got a little bit of I have an old injury from jiu-jitsu, like cartilage in my throat. I broke it like 10 years ago. And every once in a while I get a little bit strained and I can feel it. So I'm a little irritable in the throat, which is always not a good way to start an hour-long podcast, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, our CTO also sometimes comes in on Monday with a black eye. It's also jiu-jitsu athlete.
Yep, it happens. It's keeps me sane, doesn't always keep me pretty. So apologies in advance. All right, let's talk a little bit about Centi. So you actually got a bunch going on, but let's give an overview for anybody that isn't aware. Centi is a brand that we've seen for a number of years, that we see sort of tangential to the BSV economy. You'll see the occasional sponsored by Centi or something here and there, but unless you're paying close attention, I'm not sure that like the average consumer or my average viewer necessarily is going to just automatically be a Centi customer, but they maybe should be. So if you could let us know, like what is the company? What do you do?
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, Centi was founded to save merchants and consumers millions and billions of dollars, or in our case, also Swiss francs. And we do this by disintermediating payments, by really offering an alternative to the current debit and credit schemes, which are used for mostly e-commerce today, by allowing micropayments, opening new markets, And yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell what we do.
So I've been to Switzerland. You and I think we probably met for the first time in Switzerland, at least
Yeah,
in
I think so.
person. And it was really interesting. I thought Zurich was a beautiful city. The people were very accommodating. But I found it funny just how tightly the Swiss franc and the Swiss just brand, for lack of a better term, had this strength in just the way that people go about their lives. Like you see a Swiss flag, and I'm an American, so everything's covered in flags where I'm from. But I think the Swiss do it much more tastefully. But in casual conversations, I found it so fascinating how much people focus on the value of the Swiss franc, just how much there's this sort of cultural ingrained love of the franc and its value to the rest of the world. And I'm curious, since you have participated in issuing a Swiss franc stablecoin, what is so special about the franc? Again, for the kind of person that maybe isn't familiar with the Swiss economy and Switzerland's role in
Sure.
Europe and global finance and all of that. If you could give us a little overview on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Well, the Swiss franc is largely known to be a very stable currency and quite crisis-resistant currency. Switzerland is a neutral country. So, for example, in times of warfare, where people don't know what will my country do and so on, with Switzerland, you're always pretty sure that Switzerland will not engage in any of that. We have a very sound economy. And yeah, therefore, the Swiss franc has been very stable. People like to go into Swiss franc. And also, it's very low inflation compared to other countries.
So is it actually like precious metal backed or anything like that? Or are there things about it
No.
from a fundamental standpoint that make it special, or it's
No.
just a decision made by the Swiss?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the Swiss National Bank, which kind of governs the Swiss franc. And historically, they have taken one or two good decisions as well in certain markets and things like that. Of course, sometimes, you can't always win. But, I would say in general, this is a very sound national bank that we have.
All right. Very interesting. And so Centi, being a Swiss focused business, do you have a global reach? Is the idea to give people access to just general payment technology, or are you trying to bring people toward the Swiss franc? Like what, how can,
Very good question.
I'm just a little unclear, like what is it that Centi does? Because again, like it's a kind of a blockchain business, but you're more just a payments company that seems to just decide to use a blockchain. So like who's your ideal customer, or maybe what are your 2 or 3 ideal customers? What do they look like?
Okay, so we have to differentiate between the consumer side and the merchant side, like you have with other payment solutions as well. So to answer your first question, currently we serve merchants in Switzerland and Denmark, and we're of course constantly looking to extend this by 2024 when the so-called MiCA regulation goes into place in the European Union. We would like to be able to serve all of the European Union. We can also serve other countries, and this will be more through technology and licensing deals. On the consumer side, we currently serve 20 countries. We just plan to extend this now to South Korea and Poland because we get a lot of requests from there. So this is basically the idea. The idea is to create a global payment network that is globally compatible. So for example, if you download the Centi app, and you have BSV or you have our Swiss franc, then you can pay in Switzerland or in Denmark or in any other country we will add. So on the consumer side, for you, this is a global thing, but on the merchant side, certain things cannot be organized locally, compliance topics and things like that.
Okay, so is there a comparison to maybe a classic company that we might know of? And I think of like Ingenico or some of these sort of credit card point of sale companies. Are you trying to who are you trying to disrupt?
So we're just trying to disrupt really the settlement layer of payments. So basically, Visa, MasterCard, these are sort of our end bosses, if you want to say so. Of course, we cannot get into the ring with them just now. You know this from Jiu-Jitsu. You have to level your way up. And one way we can get into the market really is, first of all, of course, by our pricing, by our services, and as well in micropayments, where this is sort of a blue ocean that these companies and all the payment companies, and there are various payment companies around these days, you know that, Block, Square, and whatever their name is, Stripe, and so on. But all of them build on the backbone of this credit card industry. So for Visa, MasterCard, it's absolutely awesome. You have all these, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay. They love all this because essentially they all settle through Visa or MasterCard. Now, we want to be a true alternative. We are really not debit. We are not credit. We are digital cash. And this is really what we want to establish. And well, yes, we are a blockchain company. We bring this Web3 technology to everyone, but we want to make it usable so my mom and my brother and everyone else can use it without actually knowing about Bitcoin or this technology, which is also why the Swiss Franc stablecoin is so important, because consumers, they think in francs or dollars or euros. They don't think in Bitcoin or Dogecoin or any of that.
Yeah. So it's interesting when you, and I have a little bit of experience in the point of sale industry, just from a tech standpoint. I used to do IT and cybersecurity for some retailers. And I was shocked when you see how many people get paid when you swipe a credit card. Sometimes it's never less than maybe 6 or 7. And sometimes it's a dozen different companies that are doing the intra-bank transfers, and they're doing the cash settlement. And then you're paying for the rail, and you're paying for the gateway, and then you're paying. So it's like all these other things. And truly, Bitcoin can eliminate all of them. Like, there's not really a reason for any of it if we all have Bitcoin. But it's interesting how you have to start to peck away at it. If we want Bitcoin to replace everything, you have to just pick a thing and say, okay, do this part on Bitcoin. And maybe in 2 years, then you do another thing on Bitcoin. Do you have like presumably you have a plan of attack on, okay, if we do this really well, then we can attack this, and then we can attack this. And I don't say attack in a malicious sense, but I mean from like a corporate
market sense.
Yeah, right. Take over and disrupt different things. So is the order of those things strategic at Centi?
Yes, very strategic. We've also studied very closely how the credit card companies actually did this in the 60s and 70s, and how they managed, they also they had the same issue, right? You have a so-called two-sided rollout. So you need to convince merchants at the same time, convince consumers. They had exactly the same problem. And some of the things they did, we can well apply still to today's world and learn from it. And absolutely, we have, of course, dedicated strategies for all this at Centi.
Sure. So let's talk about the stablecoin, because this is like the most contentious thing. If you talk to Bitcoiners, and it's been, how long ago did Tether start? 2014 or 15 was probably the first serious stablecoin. And there's been this confluence of, no, we should denominate everything in Bitcoin. And if we give fiat the opportunity to be the unit of measure, it'll stay forever. And then you have the people that say, well, no, obviously fiat is the way we've all been trained to think, and it's crazy to expect people to do their math in Bitcoin. And so I think the stablecoin and the Bitcoin denomination both have their maximalists, and then you have the people that are like myself. I'm really on the fence. I really do see the value of both propositions, but why start with the Swiss franc instead of, say, the dollar? Like, is it from a regulatory standpoint, and maybe also let us know how official is your Swiss franc stablecoin who is the issuer? What are the legal implications? Maybe let's start there. What's the story behind the Swiss franc stablecoin?
Keep the other questions on the hot plate so we can answer them later, because they're also really important. Well, the Swiss franc stablecoin, Centi Franc, is issued by Centi. And it stands, 1 cent of this Swiss franc, always gives you a claim of this 1 Swiss franc cent against us. And this is a bearer instrument. So whoever holds it has this claim. It can be freely transferred to third parties. It can be integrated and used by anyone. Now, why should people trust us? With their money basically, we have a bank guarantee in the background. Should we as issuer default, then every cent of each claim is actually covered by a Swiss bank guarantee. In regards to being official, this is not a CBDC. This is a privately issued payment token. That's what it also legally is for the Swiss regulator FINMA. That's basically what I can say about it. It's just needed that you have a bank guarantee as well, so your stable coin does not count as a security, which would have very negative effects on our business actually if it did.
So so that's the other interesting thing. Like the way you issue is a really big deal, because from a technical standpoint, I mean, issuing a token is a couple strokes of a key. Somebody who knows what they're doing can do it inside of the afternoon. So what was your process from going from, hey, we should issue a stable coin? How long ago was that, first of all? And then what's the registration, the regulation? I'm sure it's insurance and the guarantee. I know it's not easy to get the bank to give you a guarantee on that kind of thing. Walk us through that a little bit, please.
Okay, I'll try to walk you through it. So when we founded Centi, we already assumed that a stable coin would be needed at some point. Of course, we built everything first, our merchant integrations, our app, everything focused around BSV. That's the backbone which makes everything work. But it was pretty clear. Then for quite some time, we did actually hope, or let's say actively hope, we also pursued this with some partners, that somebody else would issue the stable coin, because quite frankly, we're mostly a payments company. We really want to save merchants and consumers millions and billions of dollars. And the stable coin is really an infrastructure project. But then, these partners weren't as fast as we hoped, or there was some stuff that happened which prevented them from issuing the coins, and so we had to get active ourselves. We just didn't want to let this be up to chance anymore, because it was just a way too important piece of our puzzle of disruption. And so honestly, this moment was around May or June last year, 2022, where we started to go directly into the interaction with the regulator and the lawyers and everything, and then subsequently also the banks.
Is there what would the process look like if you wanted to issue a digital euro or a digital dollar? Would you have to redo the whole process, or
no? This bank we're at also supports other currencies, and the Swiss bank guarantee can also be given for other currencies, and the legal status of this token would be the same. But since this is a CoinGeek channel and we can be a bit geeky, there is of course also always a thin red line in regards to actually promoting it abroad. So let's say, as first thing, Centi would have gone and said, well, we do the US dollars and we market it in the US for specifically for US people. That's probably something you wouldn't want to do, at least not as your first move, because finance and payments is really a business of trust. And you need the trust of a bank, you need the trust of the regulator, of a few more entities to do this. And it's usually always best to start kind of small and humble, and make the product work and show it works, and then grow from there. And we clearly have plans to grow from there. We also have a dedicated website to people that are interested to maybe issue a stable coin themselves, and and might not want to go through all of this again.
You're, just so you know, a little tangent, your website and marketing stuff I've always really liked. I think the Centi brand is quite strong. So whoever's doing that for you, like round of applause to them. They do a really good
we have
job.
A great team behind Centi, and I will gladly forward this to the team. For
sure. So it's an interesting thing to see how a lot of this stuff has come together. So going back to that question we left on the hot plate a little bit, what do you think should be the role of the stable coin versus the Bitcoin denomination, especially with all these problems we have with like BSV, BCH, BTC? What is Bitcoin and all of that? Do you try to stay away from all of that entirely, or what's your view on, let's say, what does this look like in 5 or 10 years? Do you think we transition away from fiat currency, or do you think our grandchildren are still going to use fiat and use Bitcoin, and they're just will be exchanged and stuff?
Well, this is a philosophical question. I would certainly like that, more transitions into Bitcoin itself. However, as a company, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter. We have to serve the market, what the market wants. And currently we assess that the market wants stability, especially in payments applications. People want to top up their app and have $200, and then they spend 10, and 2 weeks later they still have 190, because that's the kind of natural way we think of money. And of course, the hardcore Bitcoiner will say, well, you still have 1.9 Bitcoin. Yes, I do, but my wallet still shows me, some other amount in dollars or something. So we, like with payment options in general, we just believe in choice. And in Centi, you can use BSV to pay. At the end of April, or beginning of next month, we will announce merchants that have turned on their payment option with our new partner Payrex, for example. And if you want to go and pay there, you can use BSV. You don't even need to use the Centi app. You can actually use Handcash or Senti or any app that supports BIP270 payments or DPP payments. But of course, if you want to pay with the stablecoin, then currently we are the only app that supports that. Potentially there will be others that come. You will always have the choice. So that's really important. Your choice as a consumer, your choice as a merchant. What do you want to offer? What do you want to accept?
Great.
Most merchants will accept everything we allow, because for them it comes at the full convenience. They will not even, they don't care. They get the same amount of money on the bank account paid out to them.
Sure, because you're managing the settlement.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's not a settlement. So getting into the weeds a bit here, but when you pay one of our merchants, it's really a direct peer-to-peer cash payment. What we do is we have subsequent services that exchanges this digital money for the merchant for money on the bank account. And for their convenience, we also run a fiduciary service. So we can forward this money every night to Centi in order to exchange it. And we can also send out promotional tokens like loyalty points and things like that on their behalf.
It's a heck of a business, man. The payments business is, like I said, when you see how it works on the back end, you realize how many people have their fingers in just from a swipe of a credit card, and there's a dozen companies involved. It's a very weird business in that regard. So,
and it's very intransparent. It's very intransparent in many ways. You would never know. Like in one way, it's just what you mentioned. You don't actually know who's involved, who handled my data, and so on and so forth. But it's also quite intransparent in a sense that this industry has tried for decades, and it's now softening up due to regulatory constraints. They've tried for decades to prevent merchants from passing on fees. So every merchant has to, calculate this fee into their product pricing. No matter you pay with cash, you pay with card, you pay with PayPal, you pay with something else, you usually get the same price. Also because consumer protection agencies, they said, well, the American citizen needs to know I have $1, no matter if the dollar is on PayPal or in cash and so on. But they are now realizing that actually that is bad, and that, creates inflated prices if everyone is allowed to hide their fees in those product prices.
Yeah, man, that's it's just wild. It's a wild business. If you wanted to be, let's say I wanted to be a Centi customer, and I think the market is going down, and I have a pile of BSV, is there a simple way in the app for me to just exchange it for Swiss francs, and I can just sit in a stable coin? Is there a fee there?
Not yet. We certainly have this on the radar, because it's one of the questions we got asked most after the stablecoin launch. We are planning to do that, but it's slightly different regulatory category to exchange crypto for crypto than crypto for fiat. And so therefore we have to, get some paperwork filed to also get that done. But that's a matter, formalities and of filing this paperwork and so on.
Got it. So that's a question here from Cameron asking, how do you manage the conversion between Swiss franc and the fluctuating BSV price? I guess on top of that, how then do I get the Swiss franc stablecoin if I can't exchange BSV for it? Do I need to buy it from you guys, or how does that work?
Okay, first question first. We, of course, can live hedge against currency risks. Whenever somebody tops up their app using BSV or Centi Franc, this is a prop trade. So we over the counter sell it, but of course we can hedge against it in the background. Same we do on the merchant side. When the merchant accepts BSV, the order is valid for 5 minutes. So you have to pay within 5 minutes. Otherwise you have to create a new one. With Stablecoin, of course, we can have invoices that are, open for 2 months, no problem. Yeah. Then how do you get the coins? In our app, we have a very convenient module called Top Up. You find it here on the left side. And once you click, okay, that's not really working well with the filter, but sorry for that. Well, I guess you all have to go to centi.ch/app and download the app for yourself. Yep. It's available for Android or iPhone. And there you can see we have 3 top-up methods: credit card, SEPA payment, so payment to an IBAN account, and what we're very proud of, cash at the Swiss Post Office. So we can really do something here for unbanked, for people that don't have access to e-commerce. And maybe some of you think, well, in Switzerland, I'm sure there are no unbanked people. Well, that's actually quite far from the truth. There are a lot of unbanked people here. There are a lot of refugees here. There's a big African community here, a lot of remote workers. Switzerland is responsible for 7% of all remittance payments globally. So as a source, 3 times as much as the entire UK. And, a lot of these payments are sent by people that still manage things in cash and do cash transfers in Western Union and things like that.
Oh, it's fascinating. Because, well, exactly. Who's going to think of Switzerland as a place that has a large unbanked economy? It's from outside of Switzerland, I think of, well, probably 3 things. I think of Toblerone chocolate, the Alps in the logo Fondue. Of the chocolate, and right, and then Swiss banking as
Mountains,
an American.
Yeah. No, we do. And if you look into Europe, so if you go towards Germany and Spain and Italy and so on, this becomes even more so. So it's really is a problem, and all these people don't have access to e-commerce. They often don't have access to many services, and it gets harder and harder to only deal in cash, right?
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So if we were to use the app, I can receive. It's a STAS token, as I understand it.
Correct.
Standard STAS token. Can I use any STAS wallet? Like if I were to use Relaysia or I don't know how you say it.
Relaysia would finally interpret this token. Actually, various types of STAS tokens could be interpreted. Our app does the same. Okay. This is called the STAS 20 token. Why 20? Well, the idea in the naming was to be a bit similar to ERC standards, to make it easier for people coming from outside of the ecosystem to know, okay, which token might be the right token for me to use. And it's really designed as a fungible token that can be freely transferred. And, it's just whoever holds the token has the claim of the token.
It's cool. I think it's a really, it's a really cool product. My thought on stablecoins, my question is always about the business model. If you're holding, let's say you're holding $100 million in a bank account and you've issued $100 million worth of coins, the bank obviously has some fees or something for holding that in custody. So then you have to have some kind of business model around what you're doing with that money as you hold it. What is your opinion on it? And what is Centi? Does Centi have a specific policy? You have to hold a certain amount of cash reserves, but are you doing anything on the back end in order to grow the size of the holdings?
Yeah, it's a broad question. So important is to understand that for the regulator, what matters is that you have the bank guarantee. Yep. Why the bank gives you a guarantee? They just like your face, or they trust you, or you have a lot of money on account, or you pledge some money on account, or whatever it may be. That's basically up to them. But if you look at other stable coins, for example, Tether, it's not very hard to see the business model behind them. And you could assume that we have a similar one. So Tether, for example, last quarter, they made 779 million US dollars, I think, in profit from treasury activities. And that's, of course, something you can do as your stablecoin grows and you have a higher volume, you have a treasury and you can run a treasury.
Yep. And what does that look like? What does it mean to run a treasury? Just in fees from exchanging and holding people's assets, or?
No, not at all. What it is basically that at some point you transition from saying, well, we have every Swiss franc directly in a bank account to, well, why don't we, invest in some government bonds, for example, like that, and basically give that as a pledge towards the guarantee or something like that. Right. So obviously what's really good, and I want, what we think is really important is that these risks are very, very well managed. Yep. Now with the Centi franc, which bank is involved. You can look at their balance sheet, you can check them out, whatever. And with the bank guarantee, you will also know that, Centi cannot just YOLO with these funds or do whatever, because we need the bank guarantee, and of course the bank has very stringent rules on, and it's quite risk averse, let's say that way. So that kind of puts a limit towards the risks and so on you could take with this treasury, where of course other stable coins that don't have such a bank guarantee, it's completely up to them. You don't know which bank they're holding the money. Some of them have some like transparency website, but it's not really audited. So you don't really know, is it just a website? Is it real? So therefore we at Centi kind of say, well, we kind of introduce a new category of stablecoin, which is not fiat backed, but fiat guaranteed. And I think this should really be looked at kind of separately from other stablecoins. And we think it's the closest you can come to a CBDC implementation without actually involving the national bank or the government.
It does sound that way, which actually sounds like probably the right way to do the issuance. Is you don't necessarily have to have every dollar sitting in the bank, but the guarantee from the banking system. I mean,
you might have to have more.
Well, yeah,
especially initially.
Well, that's the interesting thing. The stablecoin business, on its face value to somebody that doesn't understand banking in a deep fashion, you look at it and say, well, how could you ever make money? You're literally just shuffling a one-to-one thing. Where's the spread or whatever? And you mentioned treasury bonds and things like that, but that's still those are slim. You really got to be talking billions of dollars in the shuffle in order to make it worth your while for stuff like that. So I think that's why we've seen people say, well, let's take on some commercial paper and let's take on, a little more risky stuff to try to make.
In times where everything trends up, everyone's a winner and everyone's happy with you. But of course, we want to be a stable coin. And that's also why we chose the Swiss franc as a first currency. Sure. We as a business, to be honest, we still see this right now as an infrastructure project. So, this creates some overhead costs and some direct costs. And we want to make up for that on the commercial side with basically fees that, we can collect from merchants and so on. If the stablecoin grows to that volume, and it will, then it can become kind of a profitable project on its own. But we would have even started that without that, because we need this infrastructure. It's really plumbing that we need.
Yeah. Well, and man, it's such an interesting thing. I think people just have this curiosity. I know I just have an extreme curiosity about how money works. And I could sit and have this conversation with somebody every day for, forever. But it's interesting to see how much everybody thinks they're a macroeconomist and some kind of monetary theorist. But what you're actually trying to solve for is payments, which is the thing that it seems like most Bitcoiners have just, payments, whatever, right? Like how many people have just said, just use fiat or just use your Visa.
Just use credit cards. It's not for people earning less than $2 a day and so on. Yes. We know all these. All these folks, yeah.
So why? Well, first of all, when and why did you decide to tackle payments? Was it a specific moment that it clicked that this was going to be your goal? Because I know you've been a Bitcoiner for I think roughly as long as I have. I'm a like 2012, 2013 era Bitcoin guy. If I recall, you're something similar.
That's right. Yeah. To be honest, what really fascinated me about Bitcoin in the very beginning was like sending money to a friend onto his wallet, and he sends it to the next guy and next guy, and then it comes back to me, and there's hardly anything missing. And that was what Bitcoin was 2011, 12, 13.
Yeah.
And then at some point, this changed, the fees increased. And I mean, it was clear, that was really what surprised me at the time, how many people were kind of opposing scaling this wonderful, beautiful system. That was really, that kind of hit me kind of emotionally, but also it really as a surprise. Like I was like surprised at like how many of my friends or colleagues would say, payments, hodl and whatnot, and this really saddened me. So my business partner actually comes from the payment industry. And he, at the time where he worked in the payment industry, already wanted to propose basically similar things that we do at Centi today to his employer at the time. And there were several issues. One was that just when they kind of wanted to start the project, replaced by fee got introduced, which is very bad for payment acceptance. And, and there was basically the fees were raking up. There were a lot of like crypto extortion or whatever it's called, like, crypto locker. And so a lot of bad press around Bitcoin. But when they, sat on the spreadsheet and said, well, how can we make money with this? It was becoming clear that like, I mean, we need 3 transactions per second ourselves if we want to, make this a viable product. So how could we work with this blockchain? And then it, went into the drawer until we finally had, a Bitcoin blockchain that can scale. And here we are.
Do you think we have a problem? I mean, we have a problem, but how long do you think the problem persists in this weird place where there's so much confusion about what the technology is for? For me, it's always been, okay, I guess I'll focus on like media and education. But for you, you're putting money into, you know what, we're going to ignore the social problem or the confusion, and we're just going to build a good payments app. At what point do you think it stops mattering completely to where people aren't going to have a tribe or their political, nonsense associated with the technology?
Honestly, this might never stop. You can even see that inside the BSV, economy, that you have people shooting against each other, blah, blah. We're just not really interested in that. We're going after these 99% that don't care about Bitcoin, that just, care about their consumer prices, about convenience, about, good loyalty programs and all these things. And we really target customers and consumers, like customers being merchants and consumers being, the payers that don't really know anything about this. They will not know, about any fights between different blockchains or blockchain philosophy, or, you're more decentralized than this guy, or they don't care about any of this. What matters is, that it's safe, that it works, that it's fast, and, that they have control of their money, which today they don't really have. I mean, as a consumer tapping the credit card, you might not realize this, but as a merchant that accepts credit cards, you're at the constant mercy of these companies. You might have some case. Oh, we reserved, $20,000. And that's not a joke. That's like real. We reserved $20,000 from your payouts until, this issue is resolved. And, this might really be catastrophic for some merchants. And you also don't get paid out very quickly. You usually get paid out 2 or 3 weeks after you collected the payment. So your cost of capital, it's really not cannot be overstated how important this is.
It really is interesting. I mean, it's kind of like what Craig says about it. He's always says it's plumbing. Stop talking about the details. It should just work like your plumbing. And it's such to me, as someone who likes to talk about Bitcoin, there's the half of me that says, well, no, I would really like to work this out. But then there's the other half that says, you know what, my life is a lot better knowing that the toilet is going to flush for years straight without any maintenance. And then,
But, Kurt, maybe you are a plumber that is also using a toilet every now and then, right? So, I mean, obviously
yes.
we need people that do understand the plumbing system and do know
Yeah.
where stuff goes after you flush and maintain it and care for it and kind of ensure that nobody else has to care about it,
Yeah.
and doesn't, have to get their hands dirty, basically. And,
Right.
that's what people like us are trying to do every day.
No, it's brilliant. And it's one of the things that continues to inspire me, despite some of my own frustrations in the blockchain space and how Bitcoin generally has turned out, the way the culture's gone, is that there are people like yourself who say, you know what, I'm going to build a business and I'm going to try to solve an actual problem that the economy has, rather than just sit back and create a laser eye profile on Twitter and harass people all day about Bitcoin. Like you have built a company, you and presumably a handful of partners and other good people. But what do you think? How do we get more people to be entrepreneurial in the Bitcoin space? Because I think that's actually more than our narrative problem, or more than a lot of other things. I think real entrepreneurialism is something that we need a lot more of, and we need it sooner rather than later if we're going to really start to change some of the problems in the world. So is this something we can teach? Is it something we can inspire, or do we just need to focus on ourselves and keep pushing forward?
Yeah, I think it's a very tough question to answer so general, because for every entrepreneur, it could be the right time at a different time. Maybe for some people, it's the right time when they're studying and, they think that, I have time, I can build a company in parallel. I had a professional career in the healthcare and diagnostics industry, heavily regulated industry, kind of watched the Bitcoin thing in parallel, joined meetups, organized things, and then sort of jumped into the professional space at some point, and then founded my own company. It really matters on your life circumstances, and what you just need to be prepared for is really, really put a lot of time into it. And also you need to be prepared to have a lot of people in your friends and family circle that at the beginning just don't get it. Once they see your app, once they see, oh, he made this payment and bam, the paywall got, it's gone, and they see it, but they don't have the same know-how than you. So don't get disencouraged by that. Find the people that, share this vision, understand this vision, try to support it, can finance it. Don't waste your time with naysayers and people that say it can't be done. Just try and do it. And quite honestly, this high risk startup, founding a startup is high risk. You need to be able to take the risk and shouldn't be scared to fail. Of course, nobody wants to fail, but you have to accept it's a reality. It might happen. And once you accept this, you can remove this fear in your, everyday work life, and just try and also really try and have fun at what you're doing. It's very easy to get overwhelmed with a lot of tasks. At Centi, we have now operational tasks. We have, my head is buzzing every day, but I'm trying to focus on one thing and do it. It's not always so easy, but that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. It's incredible. Somebody said to me once, I don't remember who, but they said, if you tell people you got a new job, they'll congratulate you. But if you tell them you started a business, they usually go, ooh. I can relate. I'm, in the same boat. I have a startup, and it's got all of its own drama. So here's a question from Brandon Ward. What does Bitcoin adoption look like in Switzerland? Has it been positive in terms of what you guys provide or are trying to provide?
So generally, Switzerland had regulatory clarity on many of these blockchain topics, or let's say more regulatory clarity on many of these blockchain topics quite early on. I think 2013 was the first time the Swiss Federal Council issued a statement answering some requests from the parliament saying it's not an issue, it's niche, and we can just treat it like a foreign currency, so it's VAT exempt. And then you already had some clarity. Okay, it's like a foreign currency. That's good. We can work with that. Where others countries. I hear they still haven't made up their mind. Is it the commodity? Is it the security? Is it both? Is it this? Is it a means of payment? Like it could be many things. So that attracted a lot of companies and businesses to Switzerland. But honestly, as you know, in this scene, a lot of them were also around making a quick buck, raising your money for the ICO and then getting stuck. Oh, I don't actually have investors, so I can't pivot. Now I have to burn through this money doing exactly what I told them to do, but maybe it doesn't make sense anymore. Doesn't matter. I still have to do it. There are a lot of things, but there are some really good companies and really innovative companies as well here in Switzerland. And some of them survived and are still thriving, actually. In regards to the general sort of community, we really have a lot of meetups and things like that going on. Of course, in those meetups, in those groups, you have the same discussions as you've been having on this podcast and other places, like about scaling, about which chain is better, about this. Some groups say, oh, we want to ban Ethereum talk. Some say we want to ban this. We want to, there are always people that try to steer the narrative and control what's allowed and what's not allowed. But quite frankly, if ideas are good, they just spread. The second part of the question, Brandon, was around whether that's helping us or whether that.
Is it helpful or is it is it a detriment to say, well, it's Bitcoin, but then you have to explain it, or do people not care?
Of course, many don't care, but those that have some previous know-how, they want to know what type of Bitcoin, or they want to talk to you about tulip bulbs, or the classics. You have those classic conversations all the time again. But generally, I think after this whole Silk Road stuff and so on, Bitcoin was quite a tainted word also here in Switzerland.
Yeah, for sure.
And then everybody used blockchain for quite some time. Now it seems to be, Bitcoin's fine again. Bitcoin is like the granddaddy of, these cryptocurrencies. And, it's so old that it's cool again. It's quite retro again and so on.
Sure.
But frankly, in the conversations we have with merchants or our consumers, I mean, obviously we have some, BSV fans that use our app and they're super welcome, of course. And we help whenever, they write the support request or something. But on the merchant side, quite frankly, all they care about is, how much money will I get at the end of the week or the end of the month? Will there be chargebacks? Will there be refunds? Is it safe? Can I use it? Is it convenient? These are the questions we also focus on. And I think you can steer a lot of the narrative in how you approach your customers and what you talk about. You set the narrative. You approach them and say, hey, we want to talk to you about, payment fees, and how do you feel? And do you feel there is room for something cheaper and more direct and, with less chargebacks? Most of them would say, yes, there is.
Yeah, right. Sounds great. Yeah. What's the comparison with TWINT, which is presumably that's how it's pronounced. I think this is
it's a Swiss payment scheme. Yeah. TWINT is a debit scheme. So it's basically a app which is a virtual debit card. In order to use TWINT, you need to have a bank account. So you need to be connected to a Swiss bank. And that puts certain limits on it. TWINT's very popular. It has 3.5 to 5 million users. We actually already have a contract with them. We haven't built it into our top-ups yet, but we want to because, of course, we want to give people whatever on and off ramps that they want. And to be honest, what I can really say good about TWINT is that it really is a true alternative to settle those electronic payments through Visa and MasterCard. It is initiated by the Swiss banks. It belongs to the Swiss banks, and therefore it's also limited. So let's say you run an event close to the border. Switzerland's a very small country, even smaller than most of your states would be. You of course have people coming from all over, and these can all not use TWINT. And that's really a big differentiator. We can serve unbanked, and we're as you know, Bitcoin is a global thing.
Yeah. Interesting. So, and there's payment apps like that in a lot of countries. I've noticed now that I've traveled quite a bit. It seems like every country has their own very simple but national only kind of payment app. Like in the US, we have Zelle, for example, and it's it's pretty easy. I can send a Zelle payment to somebody's email address or their phone number, and they can settle it even if they don't have a Zelle account. And I think in many ways, Bitcoin kind of missed the boat on this stuff. Like we sort of told people that digital payments matter, and then the banks took the opportunity to say, "Oh, okay, maybe we should have a product that competes with Bitcoin before Bitcoin becomes a big deal." Is there what do you think? I mean, I guess Centi is the answer to this, but what do you think is a way that we can get this back? Maybe not just in the commercial sense, but how can we start to like win this narrative back from people that, because even like young kids, I get like 20-year-olds that look at me and be like, dude, I don't know, send me something on Cash App. Like, doesn't that just work fine? So,
yeah, no, absolutely. A very good question. So first, let me comment and say, I think that Bitcoin, was really missing out for several years due to its scaling issues and discussions, because we had, before TWINT was even founded as a company, paying with a QR code through Bitcoin, that worked fine. It worked fine on various apps. I had them on my phone, it was easy, it was frictionless. So there was really our time to, to crowbar into the market and say, hey, but then, as soon as the payment already cost 20, 30 cents of network fees, that was just not a thing anymore. And basically Bitcoin pivoted. So there is a lot of time that was lost in this time. And I know you also like to sometimes get into theories as to why that is. And we can maybe get into that later, but it's definitely like that. I would say it's definitely like that Bitcoin missed out for many years. And how can we come back from that? We just have to really build those end user and end customer products that are really needed on the market and wanted. So it's maybe there would have been a time back in the days to push the sort of Bitcoin evangelist narrative on people and trying to convince them, oh yeah, it really works and it's cool and we're community. But as soon as you start infighting in that community, nobody wants to get in. They're like, what the fuck? Why should I get in?
It just seems crazy.
Why should I get into those arguments? Let me just tap my credit card, right? And so we really need to get away from these arguments, get to the utility, cut to the chase, and build those things that are valuable. We have seen an opportunity in this market. I hope many, many entrepreneurs see various opportunities in all sorts of markets, creator markets, and a lot of that stuff can also be enabled with Centi. Some things will need their own technology, but it's really all about think about the business case, think about, the market for these things, who wants them, who needs them, and then it takes really this leap of faith to go and build it, because before you cannot show it to anyone, it's very hard to convince someone to buy your product if it's not there yet. It's really an art form. And you need to kind of work yourself up. Then you have your demo and, this guy sees it. And then you build your next step. Maybe one day you'll have your own stablecoin.
There you go. Here's a great question and making me thirsty. As a Swiss mead maker selling mead online, how can I use Centi?
Please write an email to support@centi.ch. We will happily onboard you and then show you the various integrations we already have. Maybe you're selling through WooCommerce. We have a ready-made integration. Maybe you're selling through one of our partners already. Then we have a ready-made integration there. If not, we help you make an integration. This is also a huge, huge difference to the current payment providers, is that we have an open API. So it's not like, only these certified people that also want to see a lot of money for, giving you access through their API to this API. With us, you can interact directly. So if you want to build some sort of vending machine or some type of product that we don't support yet, we will help you create it with our API.
That's brilliant. And it made it actually so that we could release the maybe 2 or 3 days after Gorilla Pool, we released
very cool.
an API with Jungle Bus. So if anybody wants to integrate and track the data, or use basically create a data feed about Centi francs, you can do it instantly using our API as an index as well.
And that was really a cool moment when you posted this, because I really thought, well, that's really showing how There are now various infrastructure providers that are competing, which is always what we wanted, with what we also as a business want, right? We don't want just Google Cloud. We also want AWS and Azure and everyone to compete, because in the end, competition is really, really good for the consumers and the people that need those products.
Well, and we just wanted to show support, like a native
really
stablecoin. Cool. I know it's a lot of work to get all that stuff together and actually issue. So, outside of all the, me being a showman and this being an interview, like, congratulations. I know it was a lot of work.
Thank you very much, Kurt. And it was really appreciated to see that. Really like to see that tweet. That was really awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to hear it. Is there anything you wish I had asked you, or something else that you want to talk about that maybe we haven't covered?
Yeah, I think what's important, or what I can also say, is if you want to start working with the stablecoin as a developer, if you have an idea for an app or something you'd like to build, please come talk to us. We're happy to support you either with our own tools or guide you to, you don't need us necessarily if you want to do something with that stablecoin. Of course, the claim is against us, and anyone can come to us and bring this claim. But if you prefer to do your own thing, you can even write your own libraries if you want. But we'll gladly help you if you just want to get started quickly. If you have an idea, we'll also consult you. If you have needs for other currencies than the Swiss franc stablecoin, please come talk to us, because we really see this as a first step, and there are next steps already planned, and maybe your plans fit within our next steps.
Brilliant. Well, Bernhard, thank you so much. It was really good to catch up. It's good to talk to you.
Likewise,
good to hear your voice. I'll be seeing you presumably in London in May.
Yes.
Beautiful.
We definitely see each other there.
Sounds good. So thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next out of Centi. And I may need to talk to you about doing some stablecoin stuff on my end too.
All right.
Cool.
Just write to me and we'll gladly help. Bye-bye, Kurt. See you next time.
Good. Thanks. All right, everybody. So that was Bernhard Müller. I believe he's a Bitcoin Association ambassador. He's certainly a guy that shows up, says what he's going to do, then goes and gets it done. And I think that entrepreneurial attitude, I said it in the interview, but truly to look at a situation and say there is a gap in this economy. There is a problem. There are so many people that would just complain about it, or just tweet about it, or just say, we can't do this because this missing piece of infrastructure, there's just not a bridge from here to there, and so we'll never make it. And there's always going to be a lot of people that have an attitude of that we can't go build it ourselves, that we just got to wait. Somebody else will do it. Some professional will come in and make it happen. Do I even have the right? Do I have the authority to go help the economy in such a way? But an entrepreneur, I'm going to sound a little bit like Ayn Rand here, I'm sure of it, but the entrepreneur looks at a problem like that. They look at the gap in the economy and they say, if I can be the one to fix it, if I can fill the hole, if I can build the bridge, if I can fill the sky with airplanes, or if I can make the world a little smaller and make it a little easier for us to do business, then there's a little bit of profit for me to make. Maybe there's a ton of profit for me to make in between. And I think Centi could be one of those things. I mean, like Bernhard mentioned, the credit card industry started, it's like the 1970s, the Diners Club card. Like, hey, can we get people to just take a piece of plastic instead of having to pay with cash or write a check or have these systems? And like, that was a huge risk, but now it's ubiquitous and they're everywhere. And it really could be the same way with a payment app like Centi. If you actually are reducing friction, if you're taking people out of the market and you're giving people a better option to save money, why wouldn't you at least give it a shot? But it's a lot of pounding the pavement. It's cold calling. It's showing up maybe 10 times to say, hey, you really should be my customer. I think we're going to change the world together if you're willing to take a chance. So my challenge to you, if you're watching this, if you have an idea, if you have a startup, if you have an app in your head and it just doesn't exist yet, maybe write a business plan, maybe print a business card and maybe start an LLC and go out there and see if somebody will be your first customer, or see if somebody will give you a little bit of seed money, give you a little bit of startup money to see if your idea can actually change the world, because it really might. And if we don't try to do it, well, then the world never changes. And that would be unfortunate, because I think we got a lot of good ideas here in the Bitcoin space, specifically in the big blocker BSV sphere. And no one's going to do it for us. There's nobody out there that's just saying, you know what, just sit back and we're going to make you filthy rich. So it's up to us, everybody. Get out there, build something cool. And remember, nothing is more important than your own reputation, your own safety, and your own, your friends, your family, your circle. Build your circle, and always be good to each other. See you later.
Industry-shifting ideas can start from individuals or people committed to solving global and industry issues. This is your chance to network with experts and connect with a future collaborator at the London Blockchain Conference. Throughout history, significant innovations have resulted from successful collaborations. In 1903, brothers Orville and Wilbur Wright made it possible for us to achieve our dream of flying. In 1977, Steve Jobs' marketing flair and Steve Wozniak's engineering magic helped jumpstart the personal computer revolution. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee worked with systems engineer Robert Cailliau to pave the way for the World Wide Web. The world would look very different without the innovations of these incredible collaborations. Come to the London Blockchain Conference, where visionaries like yourself convene and create value partnerships that could lead to future collaboration and the next world-changing solution.